Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Monday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. I think they're good, bad, and crazy today, but I think all three of them actually have an element of crazy, including our good one, and that's news we got over the weekend, Jim, that ABC News settled with Donald Trump in the defamation case, particularly aimed at George Stephanopoulos. And ABC News, to settle the case, will fork over $16 million to the Donald Trump Presidential Museum, and they also have to issue an apology. And why do they have to issue an apology? Well, because George Stephanopoulos on This Week repeatedly stated that Donald Trump was found liable for rape in the E. Jean Carroll case. And so here, first of all, is that clip of Stephanopoulos saying it over and over again as he was talking to Nancy Mace.
Ben, you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw? It's not about shaming you. It's a question about Donald Trump.
No, you are shaming me.
You've endorsed Donald Trump for president.
Right.
Donald Trump has been found liable for rape by a jury. Donald Trump has been found liable for defaming the victim of that rape by a jury. It's been affirmed by a judge.
Wall Street Journal. ABC News has agreed to contribute $15 million to Donald Trump's Presidential Foundation or Museum to settle a defamation lawsuit filed by the president-elect against the network and its star anchor, George Stephanopoulos. Stephanopoulos said on earlier this year that the president-elect had been found civilly liable for raping writer E. Jean Carroll. A federal jury determined Trump was liable for sexual abuse. Along with the contribution, ABC will pay $1 million in legal fees to Trump's lawyer. In addition, Disney-owned ABC News will post a note on its website expressing regret over Stephanopoulos' inaccurate statement, which was made during a March 10th segment of This Week, according to a court filing made public Saturday. So, Jim, I know the range of reaction we're going to get to this. On one hand, we'll have people saying, well, he was found liable for sexual abuse. Really? We're going to make a big deal out of this? Whereas other people are going to say this whole case was just another manufactured legal effort to score political points against Donald Trump. But they got the verdict wrong, and they had multiple opportunities to publicly correct the record, and they refused to do so. And obviously, ABC saw some benefit in settling this case for this amount of money rather than letting it go forward. So a lot of egg on ABC's face, a lot of egg on Stephanopoulos' face, and Trump makes a little money here.
Look, anyone who gets trained as a journalist ideally gets a little bit of background in, slander, libel, and media law. And one of the first things you learn is if, God forbid, you screw up and you have, said something false about someone that is defamatory to their character, you go out and you run a correction as soon as you learn about it. You can generally, juries and judges tend to look pretty sympathetically to that. If you can prove that it was an honest mistake, you have to prove actual malice or reckless disregard in these circumstances. Nonetheless, Greg, didn't happen in this case. And I know about you, I had always figured that if any presidential library was going to have a George Stephanopoulos wing, it would have been Clinton's. And yet here we are, $15 million. You could do a lot to the future Trump Presidential Library and Casino coming up. I don't know whether this would be in Mar-a-Lago, Brentwood, New Jersey. They're having some airspace issues out there, as I understand it, but foreshadowing our second martini. But I look at this, and I'm sitting there thinking, first of all, can you imagine going to this? And they're going to have the rope line, but then you'll be able to look in the Stephanopoulos wing. You can be able to look down at the animatronic Stephanopoulos repeating the ABC apology for "we have libeled you, sir, and we are so sorry about that," and all that stuff. It's gonna be a lot of fun, I suspect. Semi-seriously, first of all, it is good. First of all, why do you settle for pay out $15 million to a president that I don't think too many people at ABC News or the parent company of Disney like very much? Because you're afraid of discovery. This is an embarrassing story, but it probably would have been even more embarrassing with the process of discovery. The Trump team had access to all of their internal communications and memos and emails and all that stuff. And my guess is you probably would have found a bunch of, screw him, he deserves it. Or I have no idea what you'd find in there. But chances are it would be very bad. It would probably reflect badly on ABC News, and they did not want to do that. And the other thing is that, George Stephanopoulos, if you're of a certain age, like we are, the fact that George Stephanopoulos has become one of the big faces of ABC News is kind of shocking. You think back to Sam Donaldson and Diane Sawyer and all these figures who were at ABC News for a long time. David Brinkley, and all the hosts, Cokie Roberts, Stephanopoulos, I suspect there are young people who don't know that he was chief communications guy for Bill Clinton, both on the 92 campaign and in the White House in the first term. Actually, all into the second term, because it was during the Lewinsky stuff, he grew out the beard because he said he was having stress breakouts of acne because he knew the president was lying and he was lying to the country. But so he was a partisan Democrat. If you want to have him on as a talking head to represent the Democratic point of view, fine. That's, but he shifted over to news coverage and even got to moderate a Republican debate. And I think he was the one who had something like, why are you guys going to ban birth control? And
yes, in 2012,
it was kind of this trait, like people have said, Russert worked for, I think it was Moynihan last year. The idea of former staffers going into journalism, former Democratic staffers going into journalism, isn't shocking, and not just in a talking head, but getting into an anchor or news gathering stage. Fine. But you ideally are shedding some of the clothes, or you gain the capacity to criticize some of your former colleagues. And it can be very difficult and awkward. I don't know if Stephanopoulos ever made that transition very well. I don't expect he'll get a lot of grief from it. I don't think Jen Psaki on MSNBC is going to be giving him a lot of grief for not being able to make the transition to seemingly objective journalist or something like that. Look, this is, I think, the second most embarrassing thing to happen to George Stephanopoulos this year, Greg. The most embarrassing was the fact that apparently they put in underneath the desk. It used to be a glass desk, and you could see the legs underneath of everybody on Good Morning America, next to Strahan and Robert Roberts. And let's just say that, there's you could see little feet dangling underneath. So they put a little wall in there, so you can't see the legs there. So I'm just observing. Look, I'm sure Stephanopoulos is afraid that people are going to think badly of him because of this. And he probably is feeling, a great deal of guilt and frustration and kicking the cat and all that stuff. But if it make him feel any better, we've always looked down on George Stephanopoulos.
I didn't get to see his feet dangling like a kindergartner behind the desk, so that would have been pretty entertaining. But I feel like he had to recuse himself from something because he hadn't disclosed he was a Clinton Foundation donor. And now he has to be a foundation donor, or at least ABC does. So it's amazing how things come full circle. But look, George, I understand if you want to reach for some ouzo as a result of this. But look, if you're going to drown your sorrows in some Retsina even tonight, I would go with Z-Biotics first because I promise you, if you do take Z-Biotics before you drink, you'll feel better the next morning than you would otherwise.
Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for your rough next morning. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol produces an enzyme that breaks this byproduct down. So just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, as I'm sure you always do, and you'll feel your best the next morning.
Keep this in mind for these holiday parties that you still probably have coming up over the next few days. As I've mentioned so many times, I've got the colleague who knew his limits. All of a sudden he got older and the limits weren't working so great. Tried Z-Biotics, right back to where he was, waking up great the next morning. Go to zbiotics.com/3ml to get 15% off your first order when you use 3ml at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're not satisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Visit zbiotics.com/3ml and use the code 3ml at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. All right, Jim, on to the drone mystery over the skies of New Jersey. We talked about it at the end of last week. You said it kind of cleared some things up about your high school days, tongue-in-cheek, of course, I think. But nonetheless, we have more speculation. We have more certainty, supposedly, from some people. Other people have nothing to say at all. You've got John Kirby out there last week saying, hey, it's not ours. It's not anybody else's. We don't know what it is, but you're totally safe, which is not at all reassuring. So over the weekend, we got other people who were more sure, just not sure about the same thing. Here's former Republican, and I use that in quotes, Adam Kinzinger on CNN. He's quite sure that this is nothing out of the ordinary.
Every video I've seen, and I've spent the last couple of days looking at every one of these videos, every video I have seen on Twitter, on the internet, are all airplanes. They're literally all airplanes. Some of them will show an airplane that's kind of stable out there and says that's a drone. And actually, it's an airplane flying towards you at 30,000 feet. And I can see the lighting on it. And if there are drones out there, by the way, and if any of these pictures that they have shown are actual drones, these drones then are complying with FAA lighting requirements.
And he says that it's also perfectly legal to fly over military installations. I don't know if that's always true, but
No,
then
no, it's not.
So then you've got Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And if there's anything we know about Mayorkas, he's always going to tell us the truth.
Our airspace is as secure as our border, America. Relax.
So here he is on welfare.
Nobody's better at stopping aliens than me.
Here's Mayorkas, oddly enough, on This Week from ABC News.
And in September of 2023, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, changed the rules so that drones could fly at night. And that may be one of the reasons why now people are seeing more drones than they did before, especially from dawn to dusk.
You mean dusk till dawn. But anyway, September 2023.
Never mind better radar. This guy needs a clock.
So, Jim, you write about this in your Morning Jolt today. There's a lot of different theories out there. What do we know for sure, if anything?
So a couple of days ago, actually, I started seeing readers both in the National Review Plus Facebook group and other ones like, Jim, could you write about this? I trust you. I know you're not going to give me any BS on this. What do we know? What's figured out? So I dreaded it. And then over the weekend, I saw enough coverage. I'm like, okay, this is the sort of thing I should write about for Monday. So I come up with like 4 possibilities. One is the possibilities that these are U.S. military drones, that they're doing some sort of test. By the way, I should point out, it's possible that there are different explanations for different sightings. There are a whole bunch of things going on right now. And I don't think there's like a one-size-fits-all explanation for what people are seeing. As I mentioned, the first one was, particularly there's like one sighting and people said you could see it better and there's a particular shape to it. It kind of lines up with one of the drones that is being worked on by a U.S. military contractor. They put up videos of their drone operating during the day. You can kind of see how it's a sort of thing where it looks almost like a transformer that can go between a plane and a helicopter. It has 4 rotor blades, but it also has wings. And because it's very odd shaped looking, that's a possibility. It does raise a question because there are 2 U.S. military facilities in New Jersey that have said they have had incursions by drones, cited by their own security personnel. I don't think these people are going to mistake an airplane for a drone over the airspace of the base. And so one of them is the one that has not reported it is the Naval Air Warfare Center out of what used to be Fort Dix. So they haven't reported nothing over ours. We're all clear. All good for us. Makes you kind of wonder if maybe they've been testing something. Now, the thing is that we're seeing some people reporting seeing swarms or small groups of them or something. You figure if you're testing a prototype, that wouldn't match up with that. There's also the question of like, if this is the case, you put out a statement, hey, we're testing some new aircraft. Everybody knows what they're seeing. And like the panic would stop there. The second one's probably set off by Representative Van Drew from New Jersey, who said the idea that these are Iranian drones and that there's some sort of Iranian ship off the U.S. East Coast that is launching them and that they're up to no good. Van Drew backtracked a bit after that Fox News appearance and said that he's been seeing classified information indicating that there are 3 ships the Iranians have. They do have drone aircraft carriers. Like these, they really do exist. But they're all off the coast of Iran right now. So there's no reason to think they're off the coast of the U.S. I find it very hard to believe that the U.S. Navy, U.S. Coast Guard, et cetera, that a hostile foreign power would be able to have something off our shore and start deploying stuff over New Jersey. Now, I get the concern that this is, we have one president who's semi-retired, one president who doesn't step in until January 20th. We kind of have this weird period in between. And, as we discussed in a couple of episodes ago, Iran's had a really rough year. They've even kind of openly said it's, they didn't use the exact term, but it's a rebuilding year for them. So you almost wonder if they want to rattle the saber and say, hey, we're still out there. We could do something. I get that concern. I just have a very hard time believing that, and I'll go through in today's Morning Jolt, what kind of drones the Chinese have, what kind of drones the Russians have, what kind of drones the Iranians have. The Van Drew theory of some Iranian aircraft carrier sending stuff up to our shores is not particularly plausible. For what it's worth, U.S. Coast Guard, Navy, all of our sources say they haven't detected anything coming in from offshore. Third possibility is that these are natural phenomenon that people are mistaking for drones, and they, the White House held a conference call with unidentified DHS, FBI, administration official, and DOD, and they kind of all said that you look at where they're being seen, and you look at the flight paths into Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK, they line up a great deal. So the argument that I find it plausible that at least some of these sightings are indeed airplanes coming into one of those airports and that people are just not recognizing them. And then the fourth possibility is aliens. And I remain with that basic question there, Greg. If aliens are coming to Earth, why New Jersey? To blend in? that no one's going to notice them there? Or they heard the best pizza, the lower sales taxes? I just don't get why, of all the places on Earth they could, like the Taj Mahal. Look, in every one of the alien invasion movies, they're always coming over New York. They're always coming over L.A., but New Jersey? They never stop in New Jersey. There's nothing there for the aliens.
That's the deeper mystery, not just what they are, but why New Jersey? So, Jim, you mentioned anonymous different bureaucrats coming onto the call there. Would those be unidentified federal officials, UFOs?
Oh, that's very good, because I was going to say, because it's a conference call, you can't see them. I don't know if any of them were wearing black suits or black sunglasses. They didn't tell us to look into a device or anything like that. Look, probably a lot of these are indeed either mistaken airplanes or regular folks having fun with drones and flying them at night, and people see them and think that, somebody said one of the idea of like either U.S. secret, U.S. testing, government testing, or some hostile power, we can see the lights on, which is kind of required by the FAA. So if you're the Iranians, or if you're trying to test, hey, is this drone stealthy? Make sure we have the safety lights operating. Doesn't seem like it would kind of defeat the purpose of that testing. So those two theories have flaws in them. That said, there are guys, there's personnel at this base and confirmed by spokesmen. This is not some, anonymous whistleblower who says, yeah, we've seen things flying over our base that shouldn't be there. Well, that's real. That suggests that there's something. Now, maybe it's just some recreational drone user who's not being careful, but the possibility of this being somebody up to no good certainly is out there. Oh, also worth noting, so Andy Kim is the new U.S. Senator from New Jersey, filling up the Menendez seat. So he's a senator. He's not a senator-elect. He had put on Friday night this very, not quite X-Files-y, but like, look, I've been out there with cops. We saw them. And the government's not giving us any useful answers. Last night, he put an update in which he said, well, actually, I was able to line up with the, I don't know if it was flight-aware software. He eventually looked at it, he's like, well, actually, a lot of what I saw does line up with the flight paths to these various airports. Also, let's point out, there are also private jets. There are also other planes outside of these major international airports that are constantly flying and coming and going. So he seems a little calmed down some. It feels like this weekend may have been the apex of this story. Today's Morning Jolt is my best everything we know, best possible information we can get out there. I don't really have any real answers for it. I am more skeptical of the more outlandish ones. And finally, there's one rumor going around that these are searching for radiation, that there's some sort of worry about a dirty bomb or a lost nuclear weapon or something like that. Look, that would freak me out too. I would just point out that we had the Army-Navy game in Landover, Maryland this past weekend. The president-elect, the vice president-elect, the incoming Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House, a whole bunch of military brass, Elon Musk, right? Every major, everybody short of like a State of the Union was in one place. I have a very hard time believing the Secret Service and other folks would have all of these folks in one location if there really was some sort of threat out there that could, detonate and inflict a great deal of mass casualties.
See, now I want to watch season 2 of 24 again and the hunt for the nuclear weapon in the Los Angeles area. But hopefully none of that's actually happening. But Jim, this is one of those situations where 4 years of destroying your credibility catches up with you. John Kirby's been lying for 4 years. Alejandro Mayorkas been lying for 4 years. Pentagon people have been lying to us ever since Afghanistan and probably even before that. So
this is the after effect of the Chinese spy balloon. That it was over the U.S., over Alaska, nobody said a darn thing. It was over Montana until the Billings Gazette published photos. The U.S. government was going to. Their plan was to not tell us anything about this until it got out. And once they did, don't worry, it's totally under control. And it clearly wasn't. And they kept, don't worry, it has no ability to capture any signals, intercepts, or anything. And then later on, they said, oh yeah, actually, it did. you burn your credibility, people are going to be paranoid, and they're not going to take any government assurances over it.
Exactly. It catches up with you. There are just 9 days before Christmas, but that still gives you time to order your Omaha steaks for yourself, for a loved one, for a good friend, for a coworker even. And right now, fantastic deals. 50% off site-wide, which means 50% off everything at omahasteaks.com during the Christmas gift buying season. Plus, get an extra $30 off with our promo code 3ML. I've talked about this so many times. The steaks, whether you get the filet mignon, whether you get the sirloin, are unbelievable. They're so tender. They're so good. Tons of flavor. They give you tips on how to cook them, even some spices and stuff if you want to go that way. But regardless of how you cook them, they're going to be fantastic. The burgers are excellent. They're really good size, bigger than anything you're probably going to get in any fast food joint, and they taste much, much better. They're better for you, and they come with those great steak cut fries. So you can't go wrong with the Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com and save 50% off site-wide during the Christmas gift buying season. Promo code 3ML, that's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code 3ML. Minimum purchase may apply. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now, and perhaps an increasingly alarming state of where the Republican Party, and particularly the incoming administration, stands with organized labor. You may remember that at the beginning of October, late September, very early October, there was a real concern about a longshoreman strike, which, if protracted, could have had a devastating effect on the economy. Ultimately, a short-term contract extension was reached. Instead of a 75% wage hike, the union settled for a 62% wage hike. But the deal only lasts till January 15th, conveniently for Joe Biden. So he's pretty much checked out on this. So Donald Trump is in conversations, hopefully with both sides here. But he posts on Truth Social, just finished a meeting with the International Longshoremen's Association and its president, Harold Daggett, and executive VP, Dennis Daggett. There's been a lot of discussion having to do with automation on United States docks. I've studied automation and know just about everything there is to know about it. The amount of money saved is nowhere near the distress, hurt, and harm it causes for American workers, in this case, our longshoremen. Foreign companies have made a fortune in the U.S. by giving them access to our markets. They shouldn't be looking for every last penny, knowing how many families are hurt. They've got record profits, and I'd rather these foreign companies spend it on the great men and women on our docks than machinery, which is expensive and will constantly have to be replaced. And in the end, there's no gain for them. And I hope they will understand how important of an issue this is for me. And so, Jim, nobody wants to see anybody lose their jobs. But at the same time, it's not 50 years ago. And so modernization is going to happen. We had the assembly line. There's other things we've had that have streamlined the way that industrial people do business. And so this is Trump once again siding with organized labor. This is after he took the Teamsters' recommendation for a Secretary of Labor nominee, the soon-to-be former Congresswoman Chavez DeRemer out of Oregon, who's against the right to work. And then, of course, he gave the Teamsters the primetime slot at the convention. But I mentioned at the top this guy, Harold Daggett, who's the president. And at the time of the most recent work dispute, he had talked about, kind of in mafioso type tactics. Well, if it goes into a second week, no cars are coming in. You got no lumber. You got no steel. Boy, that would be tough, wouldn't it? And here's how he summed up his negotiating position back then.
Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you.
Seems like a nice fellow. Jim, what do you make here of Trump's take on this particular dispute and just kind of the overall coziness with big labor these days?
I was going to say automation and advanced technology really devastated the horse and buggy industry about a century ago. But eventually, people stopped making horse and buggies and they figured out how to make automobiles. They found other jobs and it ended up being, the world moves better when you have faster cars that can carry more and are more fuel efficient. And, cars generally don't poop in the streets and all kinds of advantages that you don't have. I would ask listeners, when was the last time you got lost? Think about how, if you're old enough to remember the pre-internet days, pre-cell phone and smartphone days, how often you would get lost, right? Now, I am sure the fact that everybody now has a smartphone and has a map on their phone that tells them exactly where they are, and as long as the GPS is working correctly, you can figure out exactly where you need to go to your destination. I'm sure that was bad news for Rand McNally. I'm sure there was bad news. Remember AAA? You could get the triptych. It would tell you exactly which route to go page by page. Yeah, that was really, I'm sure that employed a lot of people. But giving everybody in the world a smartphone where they can know guess what? We all get to where we got to get to a lot faster. We don't make wrong turns nearly as much. And when we make a wrong turns, there's a voice saying, recalculating, that vaguely disapproving tone. Stop judging me, smartphone. But anyway, Google Maps, this is kind of inevitable. And it's very frustrating to see a Republican president coming out and saying, look, putting in the most advanced technology in our ports so that the cranes work faster and you can get the stuff on and off the ships a lot faster. Well, it would cost jobs, so we can't have that. Meanwhile, everybody else in the world, and U.S. ports are notoriously inefficient and slow-moving compared to everything else. The ones that are more efficient are the ones in the South where there's fewer union rules. Why are we holding ourselves back? I know, because President Trump wanted to, the union, in his mind, the union vote came out and delivered for him, and he wants to pay him back. But this helps, innovation helps everybody in the long run. It's one of those things where the benefits of blocking this application of advanced technology that everybody else in the world is going to use, well, we're holding, this benefits a very small group of these folks in the unions, and it hurts everybody else in the general public. It's a giant mistake. We know we're not going to get a disagreement from the labor secretary. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, we're trying to do Department of Government Efficiency. Why are we trying to preserve port inefficiency? Why is there a Department of Port Inefficiency, a DOPI instead of a DOG? Why, if efficiency is a good thing, why are we deciding we don't want this in our own ports? So very frustrating. Hopefully someone can talk to Trump about this, but you get the feeling when he makes his mind up on something like this, he's very tough to persuade otherwise.
That would be a fascinating conversation with Musk, because he's all about the visionary future, and the union here definitely not. So hopefully there would be some jobs involved with operating this machinery. I mean, I'd love to see as many of these people stay employed as possible, but you have to do it in a way that makes the most sense for the operation as well. So going to be very interesting to see where this administration lines up consistently when it comes to labor issues. If they turn their back on the right to work, it's not going to be a good thing. Not going to be a good thing at all. So, Jim, quite a start to the week. I'll see you tomorrow.
Greg, sometimes you can just tell that it's a Monday. See you tomorrow.
Indeed. Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast. If you don't already, tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. And follow us on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Monday. Join us again on Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.